Good morning and welcome to The Skinny for Friday, February 21st. I'm Mitch Perry, senior political reporter at the Florida Phoenix, joined by my colleague, creative loafing editor-in-chief Ray Roa. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, Mitch. How's it going today?
It's going great. Great to be here. Our third colleague, Ben Montgomery, is out today, but
on assignment.
Is on assignment. We will be back next week. Folks, if you don't know, WMNF is fundraising this week. And by the way, it's been a while. I was looking back, it's been 6 months, actually. We did this way back in September, so it's been a longer gap than usual. So I think some of you know, but if you don't know, WMNF, of course, is a community radio station, has been on the air here for 45 years, and relies heavily on contributions from the public, financial contributions to stay on the air like we have done since the late 1970s. And we do it every time, and we do it because of your support. And so we're going to be asking for that today. We're also going to be playing some of our better interviews that we've done over the last 6 months, actually, as it were, to give you a flavor of what it is on The Skinny. And Ray, we've been doing this for just a little over 2 years now.
Over 2 years now, yeah, the anniversary. We show up every week, and it just goes by. And by the way, the phone number, if you want to get started donating, is 813-239-9663. Go ahead and do that, or visit WMNF.org, find The Skinny, and drop it down. But yeah, 2 years. And I remember when the show started, Creative Loafing had a super full staff, right? And we could bring stories here. But as it's rolled on, and we've had staff cuts at our place, this radio station has become like a source for us. Mitch, you're on here. You work for the Florida Phoenix, and you're bringing statewide guests in here, and then we're doing reporting off of that. So it's been a great platform for that. And you mentioned how this station is funded heavily by the public. And I think today, this week, over the last 3 weeks, we've talked a lot about funding from outside sources and how fragile that can be. And the fact that it's been a whole 6 months, I think that's a lot of confidence from the station in the community to back us up. We have a pretty big goal today, $1,500.
$1,500. And so we're looking for that very first phone call right now. So, yeah, the number is 813-239-9663. We will go to some programming in just a few minutes here. But we want to, hopefully you enjoy what we're doing here. If you're a regular listener here at 11 a.m., it's great for me to be back on MNF. The reason I'm a San Francisco guy who came to Tampa almost exactly 25 years ago because of this radio station, got hired here in 2000, was the assistant news director, done several other jobs. But I've basically really been sticking around with WMNF. I came back in 2011 to 2018 doing talk radio. Then I ended up going to Tallahassee for a few years, was on Bay News 9 for 3 years, came back, and Randy Zimmerman, our general manager here, brought me back along with you and with Ben, kind of combining our talents as reporters here in the local area. And so we've got a lot of experience here, definitely, and hopefully, again, trying to inform and educate the public, entertain as well, make it interesting for you. And it's crucial here, obviously. I think more than ever, community radio, public broadcasting. We'll see down the line whether there's going to be cuts there. I mean, it may be inevitable if they're going after some of the high-end targets right now. The DOGE program is. Right now, funding looks like it's okay, but anything could happen. And I'm not going to certainly say anything otherwise right now. We're very grateful for that. But again, the main funding that comes from the station, it has been consistently, is from the listeners. And so your support is crucial here. So, again, looking for that very first phone call.
813-239-9663. Don't email us. Go to the website, WMNF.org. So if public affairs is important to you, if local reporters, local reporting. I mean, last week, Mitch, you had on St. Pete City Councilwoman Lisette Hanowicz, and the phones blew up. It was a direct connection from the listener/constituent to the elected official here in this setting, moderated by you, so that we can continue to talk about big things like FEMA money, disaster response, the Tampa Bay Rays. If you've ever enjoyed anything about the Tampa Bay Rays, now is the time to say, hey, here's $20, here's $5 a month, here's $10 a month. Let me pitch in and say that this is important to me. My wife always asks me, why is there $10 every month going to WMNF? Don't you already volunteer there once a week? And I go, yeah, but I can't imagine a world where WMNF doesn't exist. where public affairs programming like this doesn't exist. And quite frankly, I don't want to live in that world because I think we're seeing taste of it on a bigger scale.
Yeah, and and again, it's something it's not everywhere. Not every city has a station like WMNF. If you've lived around the country, I think you know that. Some places do, and it's great. You do have that type of programming here, alternative media. And we, again, the station's been doing this since the late 70s. You mentioned the $10 rate. You're doing, obviously, the Circle of Friends. So if
I have 2 Circles of Friends memberships at $5.
Oh, nice. Right. So you can do that, right? So if you give us a $100 contribution, by the way, we've got some great gifts we can offer you for your contribution. We'll mention those in a moment here. But a $100 contribution, you can break that up into monthly payments. I guess that would be less than $10 a month, actually, for the year. And so, yeah, Circle of Friends member does that. So it's just a little bit off your monthly income that you're coming out of. And it keeps us, allows us to keep going, and it makes you part of our community here as a member of this radio station here. And so, yeah, we're going to go to some programming. We're looking for our very first phone call. I think before we're going to go play some sound here, and I want to do that too. I want to tell some of you who maybe, I didn't know you guys. What do you guys do in the station? Well, we do bring in a lot of lawmakers here locally, statewide, also professors, authors, and the like here. And so we will do that, but we're going to wait for our very first phone call before we go ahead and do that. And we just mention a couple of the gifts, though, before we do that.
Yeah, let's do that. So, for one, this artist long sleeve T-shirt by Eli Ferreira is really cool. I love WMNF because they're so committed to having a new original design on their gear every year. And this one's really great. It's kind of like 2 columns. It's got 88.5 on the left, and then a kind of yellow to coral WMNF on the right. It's super cool. That's $100 or $10 a month. There's a Circle of Friends T-shirt on a cream colored short sleeve. That's $10 a month as well. And I think something that's really, WMNF always has a really cool gift that I didn't expect. I think the last pledge drive, it was the flashlight, crank flashlight. I think that I love. But this year it's the wireless speaker with phone charger. So it looks like it's something you can put right by your bed, since we're all addicted to our phones. And then it can hear you breathe, and you can speak to it, and then it charges your phone. What is that, Mitch? It looks like a little coffee mug.
Is that the Alexa thing? What is this wireless speaker, Sean?
Yeah, it's a wireless speaker, and it's available for your donation. If you call 813-239-9663 or WMNF.org.
All right, so let's go to our first sound, and then we're looking for our first phone call, but we're going to go ahead and go with some sound here. So, as some of you know, following Florida news, of course, we had this huge imbroglio in Tallahassee regarding immigration. Go back a few weeks ago, because now it's all hunky dory now. But this is when we had Sarasota Senator Joe Gruters on. I think it was about 3 weeks ago or so. Yeah, January 31st program. And Gruters is actually the sponsor of that bill that did pass. That is again going to do all types of measures that's basically making it tougher for the undocumented here to be here, essentially. And so let's go to that, Sean, if we could right now. So this goes back to 3 weeks ago, when at this point we did not know what was going to happen in this saga between the governor, the standoff, and the legislature.
They were still fighting at this point.
Very much so. So let's go back to that.
Listen, who I feel bad for are the 100 members of the legislature that endorsed Ron DeSantis that are now at odds with them. We all know how powerful the Trump endorsement is. As a matter of fact, just this week, we had 2 Republican of our colleagues, Randy Fine, in a 3-way race, got 83% in a district that's 90 minutes away from him. And then Jimmy Petronas in a 10-way race got 62 or 63% in a 10-way race with Trump's endorsement.
You mentioned
I've already been endorsed by Trump for my statewide race, chief financial officer. But where are those 100 members of the legislature that put their necks out on the line to help the governor? And now, rather than working with the legislature and trying to find common sense solutions, he is bullying them and trying to beat them up. And I really feel bad for those members who are trying to do their best. And at the end of the day, I don't know what's going to happen with them. But the people on the Trump side will still be on the Trump side. And just like I said at the beginning of this program, everything I do is for the benefit of the president and helping advance his mission.
Senator Gruters, can you let us in on a little bit of the chatter and the fallout since the Republican primary? What are your colleagues saying about Ron DeSantis, who was trashed by Trump in this primary and now seems to be going back and genuflecting?
Well, listen, the governor, he's not stupid politically. He wants to, Donald Trump crushed him in the presidential primary. But Ron DeSantis, he's up in 2 years, and where is he going to go? I think he's looking for a landing spot, and he wants to make sure he's helping the president. And yes, there's no doubt that the governor's proposals are good too. Our bill's good. We went directly to the White House and got the technical guidance, and I think the governor got technical good guidance from other members of the White House. And so both bills are good. They're different. The one thing is the DeSantis versus the Simpson piece. And at the end of the day, like I said, my goal and that of most of my colleagues is to help the president be successful. Let's get these bad criminal illegal aliens that are in the state of Florida. Let's deport them. Let's end all type of incentives that give people the eagerness to move to Florida if you're illegal. And let's get rid of these uninvited guests around.
Well, and when you first started rattling off the conservative bona fides of this bill, you mentioned that the death penalty for capital crimes would be invoked. But are you worried that itself is a glaring constitutional issue because the Eighth Amendment prescribes mandatory death penalty?
No, there's been some cases where I think we'd have a defendable position, and we're willing to fight it.
Which cases?
That I can't. If you go back to the Senate floor and hear Randy Fine speak, my co-sponsor, he was the one that took this portion of the bill.
Okay. Two more questions for you, Senator Gruters, and then we'll let you go here. You mentioned Randy Fine, your colleague in the Senate. He chairs the Government Oversight and Accountability Committee. You've been seeing some of DeSantis's press people going off on Twitter the last couple of days, or X. He says he'll be holding a hearing about the social media practices of the governor's top communication staff. He told Political Playbook he intends to try to find out how much time staff are spending on social media during work hours by inviting them to testify at the hearing. Do you support him in that effort?
Randy Fine is one of the most, he's one of the greatest members of the Senate of all time. He's a close personal friend of mine, and whatever he wants to do in terms of his oversight committee is fine. I think that he's probably trying to watch out for tax dollars. And at the end of the day, listen, we're all going to come together. Listen, families have squabbles every once in a while. We're going to get past this. We're going to come together. And it's the most important thing at the end is that we continue to do the absolute best job on behalf of the citizens of Florida, regardless of some of these minor battles that we're having right now.
Sure. And this last question for you, Senator, and that is, again, we're speaking with Senator Joe Gruters, the sponsor of the immigration bill that passed this week in the Florida legislature. Let's go back. I'm going to talk later in the show about the constitutional amendment process here. Going back, you're a bigger supporter, of course, of Amendment 3, the cannabis amendment that would have legalized recreational weed in the state last year. I know you were critical of DeSantis when he used taxpayer funds to campaign against that. Would you be interested in seeing more of an investigation on that, specifically him using some of the opioid settlement funds, urging voters to reject Amendment 3 last year?
Yeah, listen, I don't think taxpayer funds should ever be spent for political purposes and propaganda. I think that's against everything we stand for, and no matter what side you're on. And I think it's important to be able to give the power to the people. And just like we banned the local governments from coming out on behalf of local amendments and stuff like that and using tax dollars to do that, the state government should follow the same rule. It's not a good idea ever to allow governments to pay for political propaganda. It's wrong.
And that was, again, State Senator Joe Gruters, the sponsor of the immigration bill, which did pass right after that discussion. Again, if you're just tuning in right now, you're listening to Skinny here on WMNF 88.5 FM. I'm Mitch Perry with Ray Roa. We're here every Friday, usually with our colleague Ben Montgomery, who's out today. We are here raising funds to keep this nonprofit community radio station on the air as it has been for over 45 years, and we do it with your financial support. So please, if you want to keep the station going, want to keep the show going, support supporter of it, we need to hear from you right now. 813-239-9663. We've got one call in here, so I want to make sure it's an anonymous contribution to the Skinny here. And let's see, this person is going to get for $103. Very interesting, $103.51. They're going to get the artist long sleeve T-shirt, which is the new T-shirt, which of course we always got a new shirt each fundraising drive. So thank you so much for that. We need, now, again, our goal was $1,500. I guess it's $1,400 now. So looking for your call right now to give us your support here. I do want to say, we don't have tropical heat. Tropical heat wave, of course, came back last year. Was very successful. We don't have heat wave tickets per se, but what we do have, we do have it. It's part of a bigger package. It's also what we're calling the Heat Wave Oasis Pass, which is 2 drinks, 2 tickets to the show, which is in May. I think it's May, I'm going to say the second weekend in May.
Yeah, I think it's the 10th.
The May 10th. There you go, Sean. Thank you. And so 2 tickets to the show, 2 drinks, also some food, some quote-unquote swag, a couple T-shirts for $500. You can get that whole deal. We're calling that the Heat Wave Oasis Pass, and you can get that right now with a call at 813-238-8001.
And that tent over there at Heat Wave, it was cool to be back at a Heat Wave, right? As I'm 40 years old, some of my greatest formative Tampa memories are sweating at Heat Wave.
And I saw you with your friends, and dude, you were
that was the latest I've been out in so long, and I have this memory of watching She, this vocal trio, kind of soul, really, really late at night. It was right after Wild World Fusion Band, and it was so special to be back at the Cuban Club. And I know this is a news and public affairs radio show, but I think that Heat Wave is so emblematic of the community that WMNF has built, continues to build, and cultivates for a new generation. Flea was there. I remember being young and seeing Flea walking around Heat Wave with his torn up shirt. Remember, he would walk around with his shirt or shirtless. And those things were so formative for me, and that's all part of this community that the station has built. And it's interesting, Mitch, to hear you talk to Joe Gruters, because Joe Gruters is a guy that you've had on a lot. It's not every day I agree with somebody like Joe Gruters, but he's talked about marijuana in the past. And what you heard Ben challenge Joe Gruters about this capital crimes element of the bill. And that's one of my favorite things about this show. There's 3 different styles and approaches to reporting news, and you end up with a lot of really different questions for an elected official that comes on the air graciously because they trust you. I don't know that they'd come to me directly. They would come to you. But then Ben gets asked some questions. I get to ask some questions. You do. And then the listeners, they call in. That is such an important part of the democratic process. I know that we're not trying to use big words about the democratic process anymore. Yeah, if you think that that's valuable, then I think 813-239-9663 is a number you can call. You can get started here. Pretty low price. You can come right in for $25. We'll send you the Brain WMNF refrigerator magnet. It's basically got this outline of a head and kind of goes back to this thing that WMNF kind of enriches all these different parts of your brain. So that's $25. 813-239-9663. If you haven't donated to MNF before, I invite you to experience that feeling after you get off the phone and feeling good about contributing to
Absolutely.
This thing.
Want to hear from you. By the way, of course, before us was the John Dingfelder show, the Down and Dirty. And John, you've got somebody else you want to thank on your show here.
Well, actually, Mitch, the reason I bopped in is about your show. When I'm done with my show and it rolls into your show and I'm driving home, I listen to your show every single week. And therefore, I'm going to contribute $50 on the air.
Thank you, John.
I've lost my phone, but I'm going to do it on the air live and to honor you guys. Because when you talk about brains, okay, the 3 of you guys, you got the brain power. We're sloppy second compared to you guys.
Well, you're before us, so.
Well, that too.
But it's crazy how MNF opens up these studios for us to produce these shows, right? They count on us to bring in these guests. You bring in your guests, we bring in ours, and it's part of this Friday, public affairs block, like in the middle of the day. And, I would ask Sean, something you mentioned earlier, Mitch, the public funding of this station is actually unique from even some of the other publicly funded stations, Sean, because the money does come from listeners. Can you talk about how that level of independence and what it means for you as a news director here?
Yeah, well, it's so important that WMNF is independent. And while it's true that we get some money from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, we get some grants from the community and so on, almost all of our funding comes from our listener donors. So if you're out there listening and you've made your $100 contribution, or if you're a member of the Circle of Friends at $10 a month, those are the people that we answer to. Our newsroom is not, we don't have corporate sponsors. We don't have advertising. Yes, there are some community partners that purchase underwriting on WMNF to underwrite on shows, but there are no giant corporations that fund WMNF. WMNF is funded mostly by listener sponsors like you, and you can become a member sponsor. You can join WMNF at WMNF.org or by calling 813-239-9663. You can also donate on the web at WMNF.org.
So I wanted to, Mitch, I did want to pop in for a second, and then I'm going to go back and answer the phone calls. But I did want to pop in and give you guys a big shout out. These guys do a fantastic job. Mitch, you know, you and Ray and Ben are so prepared, so really over prepared. You're on top of the issues. And you bring in fantastic guests, and that's why I enjoy listening to it. And I'm not going to be a freeloader. I just donated $50 to your show, and I urge everybody. I give a not a command, but a what, Mitch?
What are you, a king now? Are you King John?
Well,
Ding?
you know, I'm headed to Washington soon, so I put on my crown. But anyway, no, I just urge you guys a strong request,
a plea.
Ray, I'm so proud of you. I had the opportunity to teach Ray Roa when he was in seventh grade.
Seventh grade. You were my science teacher at Booker T. Washington.
John, I didn't know you had an education background. I know you're distinguished judicial career, and of course in politics, but also in education.
I taught school for 3 years and loved every minute of it. And I had great little guys like Ray, who's grown up into a great big guy and a wonderful dad and a wonderful reporter and publisher of Creative Loafing.
And you know what's crazy about that? I still remember a lot of friends from that time in my life, and a lot of them have returned home. Maybe they're lawyers, like working on development things, and I see them in the city council meetings and talking about stuff, and then I see them on the street and we talk about stuff on and off the record, and you end up with stories. So those are the things that we do every day. I can't express how grateful we are that WMNF has this time, and I think anybody listening right now knows that we can't take WMNF for granted. I think since the very first days when these guys were walking around South Tampa and all parts of Tampa, knocking on doors, asking people what they wanted out of a radio station, was that 45, 46 years ago.
Late 70s.
Here we are continuing to give feedback from the community. All these events, all these things where we welcome the community into this building.
And what can people do? They need to call that number, 813-239-9663. I just got a call for my show. And sorry, Mitch, Gene Clements contributed $100. Gene's an good old friend of ours.
Speaking from education, right? The former union head there.
Absolutely.
Hillsborough County.
And I was a union rep, and Gene was my union leader. She's taking our four-plate dinner set that I made, and she said she's a huge fan and supporter of MNF. Known John and Lynn for 30 years, appreciate us and everything we do to make the world a better place. Thank you, Gene. And I'm out of here. You guys are doing great work. 813-239-9663.
All right, and we appreciate you, John Dingfelder, of course, of the Down and Dirty. 11:29 right now. If you're just tuning in here, we are fundraising right now here on WMNF. I'm Mitch Perry, again with Ray Roa, Sean Kinane also helping out here. We're going to go play some sound in a few more minutes, but a couple more gifts I want to mention that we would love for you to get with a financial contribution if you give us a call right now. We've also got, the Dylan movie, of course, came out at Christmas, right? A Complete Unknown. I think it got 8 Academy Award nominations, which of course will be taking place next weekend. And so you can get, for a contribution here, we've got some Pacifica Radio archives for music, in the case, or actually a commentary, 6 hours of Bob Dylan from the very beginning of his incredible career. This is for a $100 contribution. Basically, it's what do we call this, a stick? What do you Sean?
Yeah, USB thumb drive.
Okay, a thumb drive.
And it has interviews with Bob Dylan in the early years, and also some music music performances. On Tuesday Cafe, I'm going to play a short song that Dylan did in 1962 or so, I think, on WBAI from this thumb drive. So, people who can get unreleased music from Bob Dylan and very early interviews for a $100 donation, we'll send you this USB, and it has, I think it's 4 hours of interviews and music on it.
Yeah, 6 hours it actually says
Okay,
here.
yeah.
So incredible entertainment there for you right now. For a $100 contribution, 813-239-9663. Okay, why don't we go to some more sound? Sean, if we can go the Lindsey Cross. We're going to go to Representative Lindsey Cross, of course, a Democrat, represents Pinellas County, mostly St. Petersburg. We had her on back in December, as it were. And in fact, we're going to pick up the part, Ray, where you asked her. So we had 6 amendments, of course, in the ballot last November, including Amendment 2, which is considered the right to hunt and fish amendment, which seemed pretty okay, who was against that? Well, actually, some groups were against it, like the Sierra Club. Some environmental groups were. But now Lindsey Cross, who's an environmental scientist and is very pro-environment, actually supported it. So we're going to go play this excerpt where we ask her, why did she support Amendment 2 last fall?
So my support for that amendment was because I think we need to look at conservation holistically, and we need to have environmentalists. We also need to have the sportsman community supporting that. One of the biggest reasons that we have issues is because we don't have enough protected land, we don't have the appropriate management of that land, or we're not implementing strategies like having bear-proof trash cans. There's a lot of things that we can do on the funding and the policy side to make sure that even as our population grows, we can support native wildlife like the Florida black bear and like the Florida panther. We had a record year for panther deaths, and so those are statistics that we don't want to see. It's important that we continue to give our state agencies like the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission the tools and the resources to do the science, to understand the populations that we have. The proposal earlier this week by the commission to look at having a hunt of black bears, I believe is going to be wildly unpopular with the people of Florida. And I don't think that the science will bear it out. And that's the job of FWC, is to look at what the science is telling them. What is the population? What should the population be in Florida based on the conservation and, accessible lands that they have right now? And if we're not at those numbers, there's no way that we should be allowing a hunt. The idea behind having a right to hunt and fish is to continue to give people access to the resources and to do things that, help to support a broader conservation mission. But killing animals for trophy hunting in a population that may already be strained is not consistent with that.
We are speaking with Democratic State Representative Lindsey Cross from Pinellas County. We have her to about 11:25, so we want to get through a few more questions. What about the session is starting in March? I don't know if you filed any bills officially yet. We're seeing some bills being introduced for the session, 2025 session. Can you give us a hint about what you might be filing?
So my bills are really going to focus on hurricane recovery, environmental protection, and support for public safety this year. Things in direct response to what we saw from Hurricanes Helene and Milton. Last year I sponsored a bill to expand the My Safe Florida Home program to not just be for wind mitigation, but to expand into flood mitigation. And I think it's still a really important and relevant bill that we provide some support for homeowners to make proactive improvements to their properties to reduce their risk of flooding. It's not going to solve it if we're having 10 foot of storm surge from a Category 4 or 5 hurricane, but in communities like Shore Acres or Riviera Bay, where sea level rise and other climate change impacts is fundamentally changing the amount and frequency of flooding, we need to have some tools for people. That may be doing some flood proofing on their homes. It may be commercial flood barriers or improving drainage on their properties. And so if we're encouraging people to be safer when it comes to windows and doors and roofs, we should also be providing some some support in terms of those homeowner grants for flooding mitigation.
I don't have to tell you that the Democrats are in the super minority in both the legislature and both the Senate and the House. And you lost one member of the House caucus this past week, Susan Valdez from Hillsborough County here. That shocked seemingly everybody here. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's really disingenuous to the people who voted for her. Susan has been a part of the community, and there may be, there are people on both sides of the aisle that voted for her, but they voted for a person they believed had values consistent with the Democratic Party. And there are some very fundamental differences between the Republican and the Democratic Party. And so to say, well, I got elected as a Democrat, but I've got 2 years and I want to get a little bit more done. I think first and foremost, when you enter the political process, you need to be clear about who you are and what your values are, communicate that to the voters, and then vote in a way that's consistent with that.
And that was, again, St. Petersburg Democratic State Representative Lindsey Cross. Again, you're tuning in right now. It's 11:36. You're listening to The Skinny here on WMNF. Mitch Perry, Ray Rowe, Sean Canan, as we are here every Friday morning for you, have been the last couple of years providing local, as you hear, our local state government officials here talking about the biggest issues in the news. We are fundraising right now, and we need to hear from you. We've got a few calls since we last talked to you a few moments ago, but we need more people, frankly, right now. 813-239-9663. If you find any value in what we're doing here, we'd love to hear from you right now. Let's thank a couple anonymous people. I don't know what this is about, Ray, why people don't want to give their names out here. But
nobody wants to publicly say that.
But we are appreciative. Actually, another John Dingfelder caller who was anonymous. We want to thank that person for calling into the Down and Dirty. And then also a very anonymous person who just wants to say Mitch, Ray, and Ben are the best. There's a lot of talent on the Skinny. We thank you so much for that. That's anonymous from Plant City. And that is an awesome $500 gift. I should forget that.
Yeah, so the $500 gift, that's huge, and it gets us going here on this really big goal that we have. We opened the hour today looking to raise $1,500. Sean will give us a total on that in a little bit, but that $500, so that's the Tropical Heat Wave sponsorship package. We call it the Oasis Pass. So as Mitch alluded to, Tropical Heat Wave is back. You get to spend the evening inside the Cuban Club and on the Cuban Club patio or RIP band shell. But there's a great stage out there. There's music. Everybody that you love at MNF is out there. And this pass gets you into the Oasis tent. So there's seating, food, beverages. You get drink tickets. You get a shirt with each one. And you're hanging out with all the people that you hear on the radio here at WMNF. And I know the lineup hasn't been announced or has it been announced?
Yeah. It's on tropicalheatwave.org.
Okay, I'm going to pull that up right now. That's May 9th and
May
10th. Saturday,
yeah.
May 10th. Yeah, so go check that out, Ray, right now. Also, a couple other gifts that are new this year for us on this fundraising drive, this winter fundraising drive. We've got the, for $88.50, you get a WMNF eco-friendly journal with a pen, okay? So basically, chronicle your thoughts here. It's a nice little booklet. I've seen that. And that's going to be available for an $88.50 contribution or $8 a month. You can break it up like that. Also, we've got the MNF coffee mug, which is also really slick looking. It's a white, as it were. And let's see, that's for a $65 contribution. So we are looking for whatever you can contribute, $5, $10, $100. The point is keeping WMNF on the air here. Again, who knows what's going to be happening now with what Elon Musk is doing in terms of cutting everything. Again, we should emphasize, MNF gets the majority of their funding not from the federal government, not from the state government, but from you, the listeners. So we will continue to do that, whatever happens with Doge, okay? But it more than ever, we're going to have to be relying here on the public, and that's fine. I mean, that's the way it's always worked here. 70% of the contributions that keep the station going, flowing on the air here, come from you, the listeners. We appreciate you listening to this program right now, and it'd be great just to hear from you right now. Again, you can be anonymous, maybe more than ever in this political climate. Some people don't want
anonymous
to see that.
Anonymous is cool. 813-239-9663. Yeah, Chuck Prophet and his Cumbia Shoes coming to Tropical Heat Wave. That's a classic Heat Wave band. But then you got this cumbia twist, right? Like perfect for the historic district. GA20, huge band, huge rock band, and
I'm not familiar with that.
So that's a commitment that MNF, and this is the music side, right? Like Sam's in there, you guys are having this discussion,
and
they're not easy, right? They're not easy decisions to make, and Sean has all these decisions to make too. Sean, over a dozen homegrown public Affairs Radio shows here that you curate every day. Everybody's bringing in guests. Can you talk about the challenge of that and how funding plays and how that 70% of listener funded affects you and your job there in the newsroom that's next to us?
Well, our great volunteers like you and like Mitch come in and do these great shows, and it's such an asset to this community and to the station. And the fact that we can remain independent because of donations from listeners, that's a super huge part of the whole thing. So we rely on your donations. I know maybe it sounds annoying to be asking for funds on the air, but honestly, you'd rather have an independent station than a station that's reliant on funding only from corporations, for example, or only profit-driven motives, or having commercials. So an independent station, especially for the news and the music, I think that our listeners rely on that and they count on that, and that's why they're willing to donate by calling 813-239-9663. And if I can thank the people who are in the back room in the phone bank volunteering right now: Christine Cooley, Lynn Dingfelder, John Dingfelder, Peggy Morgan, Gabrielle Ayala, Val Llewellyn, Barbara Lewis, Charlie Cushing, and Rob Fitz. They're all in the back. They're in the phone bank room putting together the gifts, also answering phones. So we appreciate them. We rely on volunteers like the programmers here on the Skinny, like the people answering the phones. So please put them to work. Give them a call, 813-239-9663, and support this radio station with your financial contribution.
Yeah, and I just want to say here, before we go back to some more sound here, I have worked in the corporate media world. I was in Bay News 9, the political reporter there from 2019 to 2022. Enjoyed some of it, and then at the end, I really didn't enjoy it at the end. And I was happy, but it was a great experience. But I've seen that side of the media, and it's a powerful system, and Bay News 9 is a powerful brand, or Spectrum News is actually. It's part of the mosaic of media that we get here in the Tampa Bay area. I'm very appreciative of what they do actually there, but I'm really appreciative of what we've done here. And I've been very lucky to be involved with this experiment in community radio for now 45 years. I've been part of it for, I guess, over almost half of that, roughly. I got here in 2000, actually, coming from San Francisco to work in community radio. Was here for 9 years, and I've gone on different places since then. But I'm really happy to be back doing this here, this 1 hour we do here every Friday. Ray, yourself, of course, Ben, who was, of course, we were just talking a couple weeks ago, of course, the movie
Nickel Boys movie.
Nickel Boys, right, which is up for a couple Academy Awards actually next week. And of course, that comes from Ben's incredible reporting with the Tampa Bay Times about a decade or so, maybe a little longer than that, regarding the Dozier School of Boys. So we've got a lot of, great folks here on this station here to add to everything we try to bring here with the guests here and keep you informed, as it were. So again, if that matters to you at all, we'd love to hear from you. 813-239-9663.
We do have some people to thank here, Mitch. Marty Galloway from St. Petersburg, Florida, has donated $100 to the Skinny. Marty says, the Skinny makes us all smarter. Marty is taking home the women's artist long sleeve t-shirt. Thank you, Marty. And again, that shirt is a blue long sleeve. Looks awesome. I want to sleep in it and then roll right out of bed and just go into the day with this on. It's great. You can see it on our website, WMNF.org, where you can also make your contribution. And we have another one here, Anonymous. Anonymous has a donation to this, $189 here. They are going to take home that Bluetooth speaker, right, Mitch. So yeah, this Bluetooth speaker, it's the size of a coffee cup. You kind of keep it at home. You could charge your phone right on top of it. It's got a USB-C. It comes with the cord. Rare these days, the wireless speaker technology. So you can run that 30 feet away, 8 hours of playtime.
Yeah.
Drop this thing in your house. So thank you, Anonymous, getting that Bluetooth speaker with the phone charger for $189. That gets us a little bit closer to our $1,500 goal, Mitch. We need $600 more. So
okay,
that's one person getting an Oasis pass.
Yeah,
another person getting a t-shirt.
couple people getting what we're calling the Feed Your Brain Pack, which is the MNF Journal I mentioned a few moments ago. That, along with a coffee mug and the wireless speaker and Feed Your Brain magnet, and that can be be yours for a $325 contribution. Again, we're calling the Feed Your, so you can call right now, 813-239-9663. Ask for the Feed Your Brain Pack. We just mentioned Ben a moment ago. Wish Ben was here, but we're going to bring Ben up here because Ben, a couple weeks ago, we did a show exclusively devoted to Egmont Key, which of course is the largest wildlife refuge island in the Tampa Bay area. And it was an incredible show, and Ben produced all of it himself. And so let's going to go to an excerpt that we did with, this is where he was talking with Brooke Hansen, a USF anthropologist specializing in cultural heritage, and Laura Harrison, who's an archaeologist and director of USF's Access 3D Lab. They've been working for years to preserve the history of Egmont Key and looking at sea level rise there. So let's go, Sean, right now, if we could, to that excerpt from January 17th.
In the present. Please welcome with me Brooke Hansen, who's a USF anthropologist who specializes in cultural heritage at risk, and Laura Harrison, an archaeologist and director of USF's Access 3D Lab. And they're both joining us via Zoom. And these two have been working for years to preserve the history, to take the history and preserve the history of Egmont Key. And they've been doing that in some interesting ways. So we just want to welcome them both to the show. Are you with us, Brooke and Laura?
Yes, we are both here together, in fact. Thanks for having us. This is
Yep, and this is Laura. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. So can you tell us, if you've been to Egmont since the storms, can you give us a sense of what is going on there now? What's the state of the island, if you will?
Yeah, so I've been out to the island once in between Hurricane Helene and Milton, just to the Harbor Pilots Village, and there was a lot of devastation. A lot of the historic buildings have been removed from their foundations, and it's really a scene of destruction. There's also a lot of environmental damage with trees down. It really does just kind of call attention to the extreme vulnerability of this island and the way that strong storms really do shape the physical remains of what's left, and they're certainly impacting history and also our perception of history and how it fits into kind of the big picture of the ecological situation here in Tampa Bay, and again, how vulnerable this area is to things like strong storms, hurricanes, erosion, and sea level rise.
Did you notice the island was smaller?
No, so the Pilots Village is on the east side of the island, and the majority of the erosion has taken place on the western side of the island. So the eastern side's been fairly stable for as long as cartographers have been measuring and mapping. So if we were to have seen any big changes, that would have been on the west side, and we have done some research over the past several years after Hurricane, Eta and some others that have come through on the western side. But just in terms of recent history in Tampa Bay, I have not seen the western side. I've only seen the eastern side.
What do we know about the history of Egmont Key? Can you give us a capsule? Of course, we've acknowledged the seminal history there, but tell people what it is about that key. What important things happen on that key?
Well, Egmont Key is a fascinating place. It's really a microcosm of U.S. history in many ways. Of course, we have indigenous presence early on for quite a long time. And then the Spanish came through and tried to claim Egmont Key. And pretty much every major event in U.S. history touched Egmont Key in some way, shape, or form. So the Union held Egmont Key during the Civil War, which is a very interesting period. Egmont Key was very involved in the Spanish-American War, and that's how Fort Dade got to be built. It was also a quarantine camp where Clara Barton, the founder of the American Red Cross, was housed for a while. So many famous figures actually touched their feet on Egmont Key and made a lasting impact. And of course, the period that we're very interested in and want people to know about is the fact that there was a concentration camp in Tampa Bay at Egmont Key that held Seminole people. So the work that we've been doing is really to document this heritage at risk and to help tell the many stories of Egmont Key. So when visitors go out there, they can, of course, enjoy the surroundings and see the amazing animals and birds that are out there, but we want them to have a deeper understanding of what this place means in all of its variations of history.
And there's some work to use visualization technology to scan, map the physical heritage at risk. Can you tell us about that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So a big part of telling inclusive histories of the United States and other places does revolve around increasing accessibility. And a great way to do that is through the use of virtualization technologies and digital technologies. And so my lab at USF called Access 3D has a lot of advanced instrumentation like LiDAR scanners and 360 cameras. And we've used that to document the physical remains in the built environment out at Egmont Key. So the tangible heritage, the things that you see when you go out there, and the things that may be threatened by these large storms and sort of at risk from these big natural processes. So we create things called 3D point clouds, which are collections of really detailed measurements of all of these structures. And we can then compare them before and after the storm to see exactly where changes may have occurred. And a lot of these changes are almost invisible to the naked eye or would take a very long time to map out using traditional methods such as photography and other kinds of surveying and doing architectural drawings. So we're kind of bringing in this new era of very advanced heritage documentation. But I should also mention that these, documents of tangible heritage also connect to the idea of intangible heritage, which is the stories, the traditions that are connected to these places. And so there are a lot of stories that we're working to create things like virtual reality interpretations and augmented reality tours that really tie in some of the intangible stories that are connected to these places, helping them live on to the future and also helping them physically conserve the physical structures where we can.
Interesting. So you're telling me that there may come a day when we can put on VR goggles and walk around Egmont Key and take a look at how... Is that the idea?
In fact, the day is here. In my lab, we've done some 3D scans of the Fort Dade structures, which date to the Spanish-American War. And you can put the goggles on at USF and self-navigate through, learning more about the different kinds of concrete that was used in their construction and learning also more about the threats to the island. Many of these structures are right on the western shoreline and a few are already underwater. So what we have here is basically a virtual tour of a disappearing island that allows you to engage with this history and also increases accessibility because, as you said at the top of the show, the island is only accessible by boat and it takes all day pretty much to get out there, do the tour and come home. So you can also just do a virtual reality tour without having to spend a whole day on a boat and going out to an island.
And if you're just joining us, the voices you're hearing, Laura Harrison and Brooke.
Yeah, okay, well, let's pick that up. That was Laura Harrison, that was Brooke Hansen, and now this is Mitch Perry and Ray Rowe and Sean Kinane. We're back live. That was a taped excerpt from the January 17th show, anchored by Ben Montgomery on Egmont Key. If you thought that was interesting, give us a call right now, 813-239-9663. Not to talk about that, but to talk to our phone answers there because we're fundraising right now. Folks, we only have 8 minutes left to go here, so we're trying to get to $1,500. Excuse me, that is the goal of the Skinny here on our winter fundraising drive here on WMNF.
$600. We're getting there.
Okay, we've got a couple anonymous contributions here. Again, it's all anonymous. Actually, no, one is not. John Dingfelder. John was on the show. Literally on the show a few minutes ago. We just got him down on paper. He actually did follow through on that. Yes, John and Lynn, the wonderful Lynn Dingfelder, Marvin. Is it Marvin Dingfelder? I'm sorry, I get it confused. But Lynn, I do love you, and thank you so much for that. And then also an anonymous contribution from. Let's see. Well, I'm not going to tell you where it's from. Obviously, any comments? Keep talking, Daddy. Okay.
All right.
That's from your son.
My son got my credit card. Love him. Hey, Patrick, how's it going? So,
there, Patrick. How old is Patrick?
Patrick's 5 years old. So, I had a music show here. Patrick would come in. He couldn't talk or anything, and he'd be in there at a Saturday music show. Patrick knows I'm on the radio here. For some reason, he picks up Creative Loafing out of the boxes. He goes, that's where you work, right? So, that's kind of what's provided here, right? I wanted to mention Chris Young, who's not in there because he's probably reporting. But another thing that your contribution does is it creates this ecosystem where folks like Chris can come in and continue to report the news and honestly not have that pressure of being an editor or something like that. He's a staff guy. He's out there every day. You hear him on the radio. He's chasing like these stories on behalf of WMNF and at the edict of these listeners who say that, hey, I believe in public affairs. I believe in news. I believe in an independent news source. I want Chris out there.
Yeah.
And you know when Chris is out there because he's the tallest guy in the room.
Oh, my God.
Okay, literally on top of
And
the
also,
news.
let's give it up to WF News because, it's part of the Florida Public Radio Network. And, when I'm in Tallahassee, I listen to WFSU up there, and they play stories from MNF. It's so cool. I'm driving into the state capitol, and I'll be up there, March and April here. And I do hear Chris's voice here. So absolutely, WMNF News, still potent, still out there throughout the whole state. You're hearing from it. And your contributions, of course, are going throughout the station to pay, frankly, for the salaries of the staff here
We have
at
another
MNF.
one coming in here. So we need to get the $600
Yeah.
here in the next 5
minutes.
6 minutes here.
Yeah.
813-239-9663. You heard Ben. Ben's on assignment right now. He's like in Paso Grill. But he did this show about Egmont Key. I think you drive in from this station to the Egmont Key ferry. It'll take you about 35 minutes. But on this radio show, we bring you to these places, talk about the environmental impacts. I was so jealous of Ben that day because he brought on 5 sources for a story that I knew he was working on for the Florida Trident, which is going to publish here pretty soon. But you're hearing this news here first in a totally different format, right? I love radio because it's like this great relationship you have. It's not 1-to-1. It's like 1 to however many people are listening
But
out
you always
there.
have to think about that one person out there, like who's listening right now, sitting by their radio or driving right now. We're talking to you because you're listening to us. So there's a connection right now going on. And, and we only do this, again, 3 times a year. It's been 6 months since we've done
That's
this.
awesome.
So we've been able to give you like solid programming. And again, we try to keep it as interesting as possible, as newsy as possible. I do cover state government, so I'm partial to doing that. And I think that's important. Obviously, people can follow the D.C. news. We've got all these sources out there for that. But as being an avenue of getting your state reporting, which is so crucial, what's going on in Tallahassee is affecting us all the time.
But
And
I'll say this about your state reporting, Mitch.
Yeah.
Like, we pick up a lot of it for Creative
Right,
Loafing.
I love that.
And the fact of the matter is, in a lot of ways, the Tampa Bay area has become the center of the state politically outside of Tallahassee, just because of the influence and the changing party politics here. I mean, Pam Bondi is the U.S. Attorney General. She is a Tampa woman from here. Anybody that's lived in Tampa for more than 10 years has bumped elbows with Pam Bondi, right? So more than ever, WMNF lives at the nexus of
Right,
news.
Florida, as we know, with the Trump connection, I mean, it is part of what's going on in Washington. So many Florida people are there in our current government, like it or not. And again, right now, so again, we've got about 5 minutes to go. So 813-239-9663. We're trying to get about $600 more here, and then we'll shut up. Okay.
Yeah, get a Circle of Friends keychain, right? $5 a month. You're going to get this brand new Circle of Friends keychain. Looks like you'll never lose your keys if this is attached to it right there. It's about a little bit bigger than a quarter, $5 a month. That's like less than a cup of coffee. Speaking of coffee, $65,
Yes.
you can get this WMNF coffee mug, and that costs you nothing, right? So
Yeah, $65 contribution. It will cost you that, actually.
Right.
And we do have what is with all the anonymous
So
contributions?
the anonymous stuff, I think it's great because people are like, listen, I know I have a civic duty, a contribution.
Yeah.
This is what I have to do, and I know that I can donate anonymously, and I can feel good about this, and this is part of my, I don't want to call it resistance or whatever, but there's something that I feel inside, and I don't have to give
we
my name,
appreciate it.
and you're
Don't
keeping
give your
this thing
name.
going.
I shouldn't be questioning that. I'm happy. I'm so grateful.
You
for
can't be in
anonymous
Mitch's
people.
news story, but we're so grateful for the anonymous contributions. And I think that's part of it too, because I think with WMNF, what you learn over the course of 45 years is that this is bigger than any one person. We talk a lot about the founders and that story of them knocking on the doors, but at the end of the day, more of them disappear. I mean, you had Cam Dilley, he moved to Chicago recently. We miss him, but everybody realizes that WMNF is more than one person, more than a group
it's the
of people.
legacy.
It's
We're just
everything.
kind of moving ourselves through here. It'll keep on going for up to another 45 years and beyond that, of course. But it's gone on. Again, it would never would have lasted this long. It wasn't for the listeners out there in the Tampa Bay area.
And they're
Greater
starting
Tampa
to
Bay
call
area.
a little bit here.
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting more calls. Okay. And then again, another anonymous contribution. This is a $120 contribution.
Perfect.
$10 monthly. They're doing the Circle of Friends
Awesome.
thing.
Thank you.
And
We
the
need less than
comment-
300 now, I think.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Okay, so this comment from this listener is: appreciate the unfiltered news and happy to do my part to help counter the false narrative. I count on the station to be the voice of a free America. And this listener is going to get a unisex artist long sleeve T-shirt. Thank you so much for that. That's of course that's available for $100 right now or $10 a month. Break it down like that. Pretty simple. And again, I wore a WNF. I have some of these old school long sleeve WNF T-shirts that I run. I'm a runner every morning, and it's so great to have them when it's like a weather like this morning. I had that underneath a hoodie actually that was actually a Stanford University. It was not a. I didn't go to Stanford. My uncle did, by the way. But nevertheless, it was keeping me warm. These long sleeve T-shirts will keep me warm in these cold winter nights. And yes, I can say that still. Okay, it's still the winter and it's still cold.
It's
okay?
Florida winter, man.
Well, I mean, it was like Florida winter, which was like 80 degrees last week. But so I'm grateful that it's like 40s.
And I'll tell you this about the shirts. I have a friend who works at a secondhand store, and some people are turning in their old Heat Wave shirts, and people love them. Like, it's so cool to walk around and be like, oh, that's a cool WMNF shirt.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. And what year was that from? But it looks like we're getting the cane here.
I think we've got a minute to go. We still have a minute to go.
Okay,
So, Sean,
okay.
how much more do we need right now?
I think it's close to $300.
$300,
So
okay.
there could be, if there's a hero out there who has $300 they want to donate to put the skinny over the top, we need to hear from you. 813-239-9663.
Tina Turner sang in 1985, we don't need another hero, but we do need a hero in 2025.
And what's cool is it's you, right? It's you and a friend. $100. Call right now. $10
Again, you
a
can
month.
break that down. $10 a month. Make it $5 a month. The new WMNF keychain is available for a $5 a month contribution throughout the year. I mean, no, $5 a month, I should say, throughout the year. So $60, I guess that would be. Again, 813-239-9663. We've got 30 seconds left to go here. Hey, Ray, Sean, it's been a pleasure working with you guys today on this February 21st as we try to hit our goal of $1,500. Great to be here, WMNF, part of this fundraising drive. Thank you for listening to us.
And thank you so much for donating. We cannot say how grateful we are that you picked up the phone, went to the internet, and supported WMNF Tampa. Not just our show, this radio station, everything that it stands for.
And the great DJ Flea is going to be up next.
The legend.
Pitch hitting for Joanne Schilke. So again, you're listening to WMNF 88.5 FM Tampa.
This is WMNF Tampa.